Hello my dear friends, it's AKREX here, and I am back with another video. Now this time I decided to try and do something a little bit different and a little bit more interesting, and something that I don't think we've ever done on this channel before. Now what I wanted to do is, as you can, those of you who have maybe subscribed to the channel named Calico Jackosaur, he recently posted a video of top 10 favorite dinosaurs. So what I decided to do is I decided to turn it into a relay kind of thing in YouTube and see how many people will it reach altogether. So what I'll do now is, as a response to his video, it will be basically me listing my top 10 favorite dinosaurs, and then I will pass the relay to the next channel, and the announcement of that will be at the end of the video, so please stay tuned. Now let's get into the top 10 dinosaurs in my list. Now, number 10, for me, I chose Apatosaurus because I love the idea of having a very big creature, although it's not the biggest one obviously from the sauropods, but it's just one of those that I always kind of heard of a lot. It's very popular as well. It's one of those that is very well studied, and it has quite a good material out there for it as well, as far as I'm aware of. And it's just generally a very appealing and attractive creature, and it's from the environment that we also, that science technically knows a lot about as well, the Morris information. And it shares its habitat with a lot of other sauropods and a lot of other interesting creatures. And seeing this thing in real life would indeed be very majestic, so that's my number 10. On a number 9, I've got a Giganotosaurus. Now that is one of the largest theropods that is currently known to science. It's basically seems to be in the same league size as Tyrannosaurus or other similarly sized Carcharodontosaurids like Acrocanthosaurus, or perhaps even the Carcharodontosaurus itself, which is not very well known unfortunately because we don't have a lot of material, but we can pretty much probably give a rough estimate that it was in a very similar size league. And also to Mapiosaurus and etc. Tyrannus, Tarbosaurus, and you name it. All of these dinosaurs, although give or take of course, they are pretty much in the same size league, and Giganotosaurus is not exception. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons why it made it to the list is because of how interesting it reminds me of an Allosaurus, but just a bigger version, bulkier and slightly changed body plan, because it shows a very interesting path of evolution in Allosauroidea of how their body plan was changing as the time went on. So I believe this is a very valuable genera, and we could only wish we would have had more specimens to know more about them. Unfortunately, only holotype is known from a nearly complete maybe skeleton, but it is definitely exciting to find out whether or not we're going to have any more. So let's hopefully wait and see if we get any more of Giganotosaurus, and that was my number 9. Now, on number 8, I've got a Therizinosaurus. That's a very interesting and a weird kind of creature. It's got this very odd, big, bulky body, long kind of neck, and big 3-clawed arm, relatively short legs, short tail as well. So it's a very weird dinosaur, and it's absolutely captivating, and it's just one of those things that probably just minds its own business, eats its food, but if you mess with it, it's just gonna give you a very nasty slap in the face. That's the impression it kind of gives me a little bit here. And the dinosaur from this family is very, very highly hypothesized to have been filamented, because the other another Therizinosaurus, I believe it's Apatosaurus. I will write the name on the screen, but I totally butchered it, so yes, thank you AKREX for breaking paleontology, sort of. In any case, yes, they are pretty much not only because they're part of Microraptor family, but that alone is already a reason enough to suspect that they are filamented because there is no scaly member known in the Maniraptora family yet. However, we also have a Therizinosaurus, the closest relative, one of the closest relatives to Therizinosaurus itself, that possesses filaments, and all together this creature would be very weird looking and an interesting one when fully reconstructed as alive. On my number 7, I've got a Microraptor. Microraptor is a very cool little dinosaur. It's a very tiny one actually, and this is something that I would find very, very interesting to see how they would live in real life. They're very cool. They've got preservation of feathers. I believe they even have hints of color preserved in the fossil as well. Of course, it's very difficult. You have to be very careful when it comes to color. Even if the melanosomes, or whatever the name of that thing is, got preserved in the fossil, it might still not be 100% accurate, just because we don't really know how much of it has been distorted. Or maybe they already figured that out, so we'll have to wait and see. At the moment, it is hypothesized to have been black, but take that part with a grain of salt. In any case, it's a very interesting dinosaur, and I am absolutely in love with it, and I definitely think it would make a very interesting and an entertaining pet. Now, my number 6 is Triceratops, and that includes both the Horridus and Prorsus species of the genus. Now, the reason why I like it is because of its, insane huge size. It's really massive. It's a big herbivore. It's very powerful. It's majestic. It wears a crown of 3 horns with a like a frill/shield protecting its neck, which it also probably used as a display structure during the mating season. And it's a truly fascinating animal to look at. The sample size of them is quite good, and we even have as much as enough to tell the ontogenetic process of Triceratops, which is also very interesting to study. So Triceratops, without a doubt, would have made it to this list, and it is indeed in the golden middle, so to speak, sharing its place with the next contender, which I will list in a moment. But Triceratops is truly awesome. It shares its habitat in a very interesting environment, along with many other dinosaurs like Tyrannosaurus, Ankylosaurus, Edmontosaurus, Anectes, and etc. So those will be so Triceratops are just generally very cool looking as well. It's very interesting to kind of imagine how they would behave in real life, how they would act, how would they defend themselves from predators. Just things like that are just absolutely fascinating about this particular animal. On my number 5, I've got Ankylosaurus. Ankylosaurus is an armored dinosaur. It's the largest so far hypothesized to be in the whole family of Ankylosauridae, and they were one of the things that have developed prior to this period, before they went extinct. And this is armor. Armor was already appearing quite early as the early Jurassic, in the form of Scutellosaurus and Celidosaurus, but we also start seeing it developing even more and further in the forms of Nodosaurids and Ankylosaurids, such as Edmontonia, Borealopelta, Euplocephalus, and of course the one I listed here, Ankylosaurus. This is very interesting because this is one of the subjects I'm currently trying to research, and perhaps eventually, if I'm very fortunate, to make a documentary and talk about the development of predatory weapons versus the herbivore armor in Mesozoic. So this will definitely be one of my study subjects, and this no doubt makes for a very interesting animal. And did I also forget to mention that Ankylosaurus, being part of his family, has one of the other common traits in that family, which is a mace tail. That's right, that tail smack would probably hurt quite a lot. Now my number 4, I've got a Pentaceratops. Pentaceratops, you see, it's got a very interesting history to it. One of the things that might confuse some people is if it only has 3 horns there, why is it called Pentaceratops? Because penta means 5. Now, here's what's interesting about it. The interesting thing about the Pentaceratops is that it was originally named that way because I believe these cheek protrusions at the jaw angle, basically at that point, they were thought once to have been horns, but it's just part of the skull structure as just an outgrowth, so it didn't have anything to do with the horns that it has on its nasal area or on its snout or on the above the eyebrows. So that's why, and the name obviously got stuck, so that's how we got Pentaceratops. And it's got a very beautiful looking massive frill. In fact, I find this one probably my favorite of all the ceratopsians, even more so attractive to me personally than even a Triceratops, which is more famous. But the interesting thing about this one is that although it may have been slightly smaller and less robust than a Triceratops, it actually, I believe, got a bigger skull than a Triceratops, which I found really interesting, and because of the proportions of how it's made up, obviously it makes it look extremely cool and how big this frill is, although interestingly enough that the frill itself has the holes in them with a soft tissue probably filling in the space, so I do not expect that this particular area was as well defended as, say, a Triceratops, but who knows, perhaps part of the armor development in ceratopsians was to get rid of the holes, make a slightly smaller frill, but exchange it for a better neck protection. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see and find out what's the real deal behind that sort of little detail there. Now my number 3 is a Ceratosaurus, and one of the things that captivated me about it even as I was a kid was that it was this classical resemblance of a medieval kind of legendary dragon because of its horns on a skull, and it's so distinctive just because of that alone. Interesting about it is that although it's not particularly considered to be a huge carnivore, it's actually among the lower sort of end of the large carnivores, so to speak. Maybe medium-sized carnivores probably would be the most accurate description to it. But it's very interesting. It also has a row of osteoderms preserved in its specimen, which probably is so far one of the only few carnivores that we know from theropods that actually have these osteoderm rows. Although they are frequently depicted on many other dinosaurs, the only true evidence of these kind of osteoderms that we know are in Ceratosaurus, and I believe something similar was also found in Carnotaurus. In any case, I am a big admirer and a fan of this particular dinosaur, and there are just obviously there's a whole lot of things to be said about it, and for that I would probably need to make an entire video. Now my number 2 is a very classic and iconic Allosaurus. It's very interesting that how it pretty much gives you a very general and generic impression of what a theropod would look like, a carnivorous theropod I mean, because many other carnivorous theropod dinosaurs, they have these certain features that are either undermined or exaggerated, like a Tyrannosaurus, for example, has slightly, obviously it's a very large, it's massive, it's got a wide, thick build, robust skull, big teeth, and but it's got a tiny arm, so as you can see, one feature is exaggerated, the other is downgraded. And that's very similar in a sense to even the other Allosauroid relatives from a Carcharodontosaurida family that I mentioned here, like Giganotosaurus, which has also reduced arms and favors a slightly heavier body plan than an Allosaurus, and also has a bigger skull. But an Allosaurus combines pretty much a kind of golden middle and proportion of all these things as a whole, and thus makes it look incredibly interesting that it's got relatively reasonable size of arms with big claws that could probably be quite useful, and it has a head with sharp teeth that it would obviously use to do what predators basically do. It's got nice hind limbs, it's relatively lightly built, it's got a long tail, so there is a chance that it could probably even be a good sprinter. So in any case, Allosaurus is definitely one of my on the list here. And it also mentioned that it has very nice ornamentation on its top of the skull above the eyebrows in form of these different horny kind of crests or something. You know what I'm saying. But in any case, I love Allosaurus very much, and I hope you do too, because I think it's an awesome dinosaur. And of course, as you can guess, the number one for me, although it may sound a bit cliche, it's a Tyrannosaurus, of course, because this dinosaur I have a very, very long history with, and it's one of my absolute top favorites. It has the most powerful bite of any known theropod dinosaur. It competes with the for the powerful bites with things like super crocodilians out there as well. It's just one of those things that make this dinosaur particularly to stand out among many others, specifically large carnivorous theropods, because of how evolved and advanced it was, how well adapted it was for attacking different types of prey. Not maybe good for chasing a nimble prey, but pretty damn good and effective against armored prey like Triceratops and Ankylosaurus, and large hadrosaurids as well, which obviously didn't bear much armor, but they were pretty large, and there is enough reason to suggest that they could grow, they could outgrow a T-Rex in their physical size. So there's obviously more than enough reasons for this dinosaur to have this crazy, insane power that it has as a predator. And obviously, given that they have lasted all the way until the extinction when everything disappeared, this is enough reason to suggest that perhaps they were successful enough to last that long as well. But in any case, T-Rex indeed is my number one favorite, and I think everybody would have predicted that. That wasn't the difficult one, but Tyrannosaurus is awesome. Now, thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed my top 10 favorite dinosaurs. It was really hard for me to pick the top 10, especially put them in an order of from, the number 10 to number 1 being the most favorite, because while it's maybe easy for me to pick the top 3, or maybe not the top 3 but just top 1, the others are not so easy for me to choose from, because it varies, it depends on many different things. So I hope you understand that. This list may not 100% be the one that I would have perhaps in a month or a couple of years time. You never know, because these things, they change, the knowledge changes, the idea and perception changes. So just as well as that, the favorites can also change depending on variety of factors. But now, as part of this relay kind of video, which I happily decided to take off from Calico Jackosaur, I decided that the relay I will pass on to the other channel, which will be the one that I've recently done a response video to, which you have already watched, I presume. It's the Cretaceous cast. So Cretaceous cast, could you please take the relay and make a video of your own top 10 favorite dinosaurs. Now, the way I think we could play this game now is once you make the video, you include the links of the first video, which was from Calico Jackosaur, then also post mine, and also maybe put it in the title or description which video you got the relay from, as in which one you're responding to, so that we get a nice kind of easy way to understand where to trace it back where it started from. So just as well as I will include the link to Calico Jackosaur's top 10, and then when you include yours, it will be mine and Calico Jackosaur's, and whoever you pass it on to next will be basically the one who will include all three of us in the links, and so on and so on and so on, and we'll just have to see how long it will carry over and where it will reach. And let's hope it gets out there. It will be very nice and certainly a fun thing to have, and just have a little fun with playing this little game here. In any case, thanks very much for watching, and if you like to hear any more of similar things from me, please post your ideas as well in the comments, and I shall see you soon. Ciao!